I've always had a strange relationship with mirrors. Not a fear, not exactly. More like a persistent unease that settles deep in my stomach whenever I hold my own gaze for too long. A feeling of wrongness that crawls along my spine like cold, delicate fingers. As a child, I'd rush past the bathroom mirror during midnight trips, eyes fixed on the floor tiles. As an adult, I've learned to live with quick glances, functional interactions, never lingering, never truly looking. I could never explain this anxiety to others. How do you describe the sensation that your reflection is somehow more aware than it should be? That in the split second before you look directly at it, it might be doing something different? The apartment on Wisteria Lane seemed perfect when I first toured it. Affordable in an overpriced market, spacious enough for my modest possessions, with tall windows that flooded the living room with honeyed afternoon light. The real estate agent mentioned its historical character with practiced enthusiasm as she guided me through the rooms, her stiletto heels clicking against the hardwood floors like a metronome. Previous tenant? I had asked casually, running my fingers along the ornate crown molding. Relocated quite suddenly, she replied, her smile never reaching her eyes. Excellent opportunity for you, though. I should have asked more questions. I should have wondered why the rent was so reasonable for such a beautiful space. I should have noticed how she avoided looking at her own reflection in that vintage floor-length mirror in the hallway, the one she hurriedly described as a charming period feature before steering me toward the kitchen. Moving day exhausted me. By sunset, I was surrounded by half-open boxes, their contents spilling onto the floor like entrails. The apartment creaked and settled around me, the unfamiliar acoustics amplifying every sound. Water pipes shuddered inside the walls whenever the upstairs neighbor flushed their toilet. The refrigerator hummed at a pitch that made my molars ache. It was nearly midnight when I passed by the hallway mirror, arms laden with toiletries for the bathroom. The corridor was poorly lit, just a single bulb and an antique fixture that cast more shadows than light, creating pools of darkness in the corners where the ceiling met the walls. The mirror itself was enormous, 7 feet tall at least, with an ornate frame of black and silver, tarnished with age. Delicate patterns were etched into the metal, whorls and symbols that seemed almost like letters from some ancient alphabet. I caught a glimpse of movement from the corner of my eye and froze. The face looking back wasn't quite mine. Oh, had all my features, my dark hair falling in tired strands around a pale face, my hazel eyes shadowed by sleepless nights, my small crescent-shaped scar above the right eyebrow from a childhood fall. But there was something off, a microsecond delay in my movements, as though the reflection was deciding whether to follow along. A slight difference in expression. My face was exhausted, but my reflection seemed expectant. Most disturbing were the eyes. Mine were bloodshot from the day's labor, but my reflections were clear and alert, cold, watching, hungry. I blinked, and in that infinitesimal darkness, I felt the air in the hallway change, become heavier, charged with static electricity that raised the fine hairs on my forearms. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees in an instant, my breath fogging slightly in the sudden chill. When my eyes opened, the reflection was normal again, just me, looking terrified, my knuckles white around the toiletry bag, my pupils dilated with fear. Just tired, I whispered to myself, the words forming little clouds in the inexplicably cold air. My voice sounded wrong in the narrow hallway, simultaneously muffled and too loud, as if the walls were both absorbing and amplifying the sound. My reflection's lips didn't move when I spoke. Instead, it smiled, a slow, deliberate curving of lips that revealed too many teeth. I stumbled backward, heart hammering against my ribs with such force I could feel my pulse in my fingertips, in my temples, behind my eyes. The toiletry bag slipped from my grasp, contents scattering across the floor with hollow plastic sounds. A tube of toothpaste rolled toward the mirror and stopped just before touching the frame, as if repelled by an invisible barrier. I blinked rapidly, certain I was hallucinating, my throat constricted, making each breath a conscious effort. When I looked again, the mirror showed only my terrified face, exactly as it should be. Eyes wide, skin drained of color, chest rising and falling too quickly. I convinced myself it had been a waking nightmare born from exhaustion and an overactive imagination. I collected my scattered toiletries with trembling hands, not daring to look up until I was finished. When I finally stood, I kept my eyes averted from the glass and hurried to the bathroom. That night, I dreamt of corridors lined with mirrors, each one showing a slightly different version of myself. In some, I was smiling too widely. In others, I was missing features, an ear, fingers, eyes. In one, my skin was covered with fine cracks, like a porcelain doll that had been dropped and imperfectly repaired. I woke gasping at 3:17 a.m., sheets drenched with sweat despite the unseasonable chill in the room. The next morning brought false normalcy, with brilliant sunshine streaming through the windows, dissipating the shadows that had seemed so menacing the night before. I made coffee, its rich aroma filling the apartment with comforting familiarity. I unpacked methodically, arranging books alphabetically on shelves, hanging clothes in the closet, placing framed photos of friends and family on the mantelpiece above the decorative fireplace. But then I noticed discrepancies. My copy of House of Leaves, which I distinctly remembered placing on the bottom shelf, was now on the middle shelf, its spine facing inward. The blue ceramic mug I'd left by the coffee maker was now in the sink, turned upside down, perfectly centered on the drain. My running shoes, which I'd kicked off haphazardly by the front door, were now aligned with military precision, laces tucked neatly inside. Small things, easily dismissed as forgetfulness. The kind of mindless actions one might perform while distracted and later forget. Except I knew something was wrong. That evening, I avoided the hallway mirror, taking a circuitous route through the kitchen to reach the bathroom. I showered quickly, eyes fixed on the tiled floor, refusing to look at the medicine cabinet mirror. As steam filled the small space, condensation ran down the reflective surface like tears. I could have sworn I heard whispering beneath the steady drumming of water against porcelain, sibilant sounds just below the threshold of comprehension. When I turned off the shower, the sudden silence was absolute. No dripping faucet, no humming refrigerator, no creaking floorboards, as if the apartment itself was holding its breath, waiting. On the bathroom mirror, drawn in the condensation, was a single word: soon. I told myself it must have been there before, perhaps written by the previous tenant, invisible until revealed by steam. The alternative was unthinkable. That night, I pushed my dresser in front of the hallway mirror before going to bed. The heavy oak furniture groaned against the hard wood as I shoved it into place, splinters digging into my palms. I sealed the bathroom medicine cabinet with duct tape, covered my bedroom mirror with a sheet, and turned all framed photographs face down. I lay in bed, listening to the apartment's nocturnal symphony, the tick of expanding and contracting pipes, the distant hum of traffic outside, the occasional thud from upstairs. Normal sounds that should have been comforting, but instead set my nerves on edge. Sleep came fitfully, in shallow pools that I sank into and emerged from repeatedly throughout the night. In those half-conscious states between wakefulness and dreams, I thought I heard furniture moving, a slow, deliberate scraping sound from the hallway. At exactly 3:17 a.m., I woke to the sound of light tapping, gentle, rhythmic, like fingernails against glass. Tap, 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 pause, tap, tap, tap. A patient, almost playful sound. It was coming from the hallway, from behind the dresser. From the mirror, I lay paralyzed in bed, sweat soaking through my sheets, despite the cold air that seemed to pour from the heating vents like refrigerated breath. The tapping continued, unhurried and persistent. Waiting, minutes stretched like hours. The darkness in my bedroom seemed unusually dense, almost liquid, pressing against my skin with tangible weight. The only light came from my digital alarm clock, its red numbers glowing like eyes. 3:23 a.m., 3:24 a.m., 3:25 a.m. Eventually, curiosity overcame terror. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, my bare feet recoiling from the ice-cold floor. I found my phone on the nightstand and switched on its flashlight, the harsh white beam cutting through the darkness with surgical precision. I crept to my bedroom doorway and peered down the dark hallway, my heart pounding so violently I felt lightheaded. The dresser I had pushed in front of the mirror was now against the opposite wall. The mirror gleamed in the darkness, catching the faint glow from my phone's flashlight and the distant streetlights outside. Its silver frame seemed to pulse with a subtle luminescence, the etched symbols shifting and writhing when viewed from the corner of my eye. And there, in the reflection, I could see myself standing before it, except I was still at my bedroom door. The other me pressed its palms flat against the glass surface, fingers splayed wide, its head tilted at an unnatural angle, neck bent too far to one side, its smile stretched too wide, revealing rows of teeth that seemed too numerous, too sharp. Its eyes, my eyes, were completely black, without whites or irises, like empty sockets filled with ink. "Let me out," it whispered, voice exactly like mine but somehow hollow, as if spoken into an empty metal container. The words didn't match the movement of its lips, which stretched wider still, splitting at the corners to reveal more teeth. "We can share." I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. The air around me felt solid, resistant, as if the atmosphere itself had thickened to the consistency of honey. "I've been so patient," it continued, its fingers now clawing at the glass, nails scraping against the surface, with a sound like chalk on a blackboard. Fine cracks appeared where it touched, spreading outward like spider webs. "I've waited so long for someone like you, someone thin enough." The glass began to ripple like water where it touched, the solid surface becoming fluid, malleable. Someone thin enough to let me through. My paralysis broke. I found my voice and screamed, a primal, ragged sound that tore at my throat and echoed through the apartment. The mirror thing screamed back in perfect mimicry, its mouth stretching impossibly wide, revealing a darkness beyond the teeth that seemed to swallow light. I lurched toward the wall switch and slammed my palm against it. Light flooded the hallway, harsh and sudden. The mirror showed only my reflection again, mimicking my terror perfectly. Wild eyes, heaving chest, a thin line of blood trickling from my nose that I hadn't noticed until seeing it in the glass. I didn't sleep again that night. I sat in the living room with every light blazing, a kitchen knife clutched in my sweating hand until dawn broke. The next day, I called in sick to work. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, hoarse, tremulous. My colleagues would assume I had a cold. How could I explain the truth? That I was being hunted by my own reflection. I covered the mirror with the sheet torn from my bed. By evening, the sheet lay on the floor, neatly folded. I nailed it in place with trembling hands, the hammer's impact jarringly loud in the quiet apartment. By morning, the nails were on my kitchen counter, arranged in a perfect circle surrounding my coffee cup. I tried to leave the apartment. The doorknob turned in my hand, but the door wouldn't open, as if sealed shut. I threw my weight against it repeatedly until my shoulder bloomed with pain, the wood remaining unyielding under my assault. The windows, too, refused to budge. When I tried to break one with a chair, the glass absorbed the impact like rubber, stretching inward before pushing the chair back at me with surprising force, knocking me to the floor. Phone calls failed to connect, just endless ringing with no answer, regardless of the number dialed. Text messages showed as delivered, but brought no response. Emails bounced back with cryptic error messages about gateway failures and recursive routing errors. In desperation, I turned to my laptop. Internet searches about my building revealed a history I hadn't known, a pattern of disappearances spanning decades. Always single occupants, always after a few weeks of residence. Police reports mentioned signs of hasty departure, possessions left behind, cars abandoned in designated parking spaces. Missing persons cases that grew cold for lack of evidence, lack of witnesses, lack of bodies. The building itself had a strange history. Built in 1891 by a wealthy industrialist with an interest in the occult, rumored to contain hidden rooms and passageways. Damaged in a fire in 1924 that claimed 7 lives, all found in front of mirrors, their eyes removed, their mouths frozen in eternal screams. As night fell again, I huddled in a corner of the living room, as far from any reflective surface as possible. I had covered the TV screen with a blanket, turned framed photos face down, even taped cardboard over the microwave door, but I could still hear them, whispers from every reflective surface. The stainless steel refrigerator, the chrome faucet, the window glass when the room was dark. They started as indistinct murmurs, like a conversation in another room. But as the night deepened, they grew clearer, more numerous. Dozens of voices, men, women, children, all speaking in disjointed fragments. So close now, just needs a little more time. Always hungrier with the new ones. Becoming thinner. Can you see through your hands yet? With a cry of terror, I looked down at my outstretched fingers. In the dim light from the street lamps outside, I could see straight through them. Not completely transparent, but translucent, like frosted glass. I could make out the pattern of the floorboards beneath them. And now I understand the truth. This entire apartment is a mirror, a threshold. The rooms, the walls, the ceiling and floor, all just one enormous, elaborate reflection. I'm not trapped inside it. I'm trapped on the wrong side of it. The real world, my world, lies beyond the glass. This place is a holding pen, a waiting room, where things like me are processed, thinned out, prepared for transition. Tonight, I'll stand before the hallway mirror one last time. Not because I'm brave, but because I'm tired of running, tired of hiding. I need to know what happens when it finally breaks through, because I've noticed my reflection doesn't look quite so hungry anymore. It looks satisfied, patient, waiting, and when I look at my hands now, I can almost see straight through them in certain light. I'm fading while it grows stronger. The strangest part? I'm beginning to forget what I looked like before this apartment. Was my hair always this lank? Were my teeth always so sharp? Did my neck always bend at this angle? And sometimes, when I catch a glimpse of movement in the corner of my eye, I realize the terrible truth. I'm no longer casting the reflection. I've become one. The thing on the other side of the glass. It's wearing my face better than I ever did. It's living my life, answering to my name, sleeping in my real bed, in my real bedroom, in my real world. And no one has noticed the difference. Tomorrow, someone new will move into this apartment. They'll stand before this mirror, and they'll see their reflection watching them with my eyes. And the cycle will begin again. Dear listener, thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. Make sure to subscribe to my channel. Many more terrifying, mysterious, and thrilling stories are coming soon. See you again very soon.